Hi there. So the question that came up was, how did Lasair and I build up this bond? I guess how did we establish this relationship? And this is kind of hard to answer because it's kind of like asking someone, what is the secret to marriage or any kind of relationship? So I guess the secret, if there is one, is basically I never looked at it as training him, or I should say I never looked at it as such. I tried that. I tried that at the beginning. Just look at it as training a horse, and instead I switched to more like developing a relationship with a friend. Maybe a friend that looks different, speaks another language and stuff, but still a friend. So therefore, we couldn't do, we had to stay away from any technique that takes away their dignity. Dignity is something that is very important to every sentient being, and it's something that is kind of lost to the wayside for the reason of, they'll say, well, the goal is, or the end justifies the means, right? And that's not necessarily true, because you gotta decide for yourself, what kind of person do you want to be? And well, that's the question I had to ask myself. And I didn't want to be that person that forces another person to do stuff. I wanted them to want to do it. And that's kind of my secret with him, is he's good with me because he wants to be good with me. He wants to be with me and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff like him going out on liberty, and we're out in the trails and I'm not holding on to him and he's just following me. That comes naturally to him because he wants to be with me. It might look like some fancy training, but it wasn't. And a whole bunch of other stuff. He stays when I tell him to stay, kind of, and stuff. And then that brings another point. If you train an animal, okay, traditionally, then you issue commands and they listen to it, and it's snap, snap. That's not the way it is with him and I. I will ask him to do something, and sometimes he listens and sometimes he doesn't. If it's important, he'll listen, or I'll make him listen. I'm not gonna beat him and stuff, but I also have a limit of how far I can go in that. So in some cases, it looks like he's extremely highly trained, and then in other cases, people go, oh my gosh, it doesn't look like you have him trained at all. I mean, look at him. He's like all over you. He's not respecting your personal space. You've asked him to go away so many times and he's still all over you. That's not respectful, He should respect your boundaries and stuff. And then you'll see he moves me around a lot, and that's another big no-no, right? The horse isn't supposed to move you. You should move the horse, because that's what dictates who has the power, who's alpha, who's dominant. That's not how him and I work. We work as a partnership. So all of those kind of concepts it's not that big a deal for me. The concepts that are a big deal for me is building him up. I want to build him up, and that makes him want to be around me. If I always tore him down, then he wouldn't want to be around me. A great example of that is the training concept of laying a horse down. It's a very controversial topic. There is a very gentle or gentler way to do it. I mean, the extreme mean method is to get them all tangled up in ropes, slam them down, and then they'll spray water on them, they'll stand on them, they'll hit them more or stuff like that. I mean, really break down that horse's spirit and demoralize them, basically, and make sure that they know that they are helpless and they have no say, and they have to submit. And then there's a gentler method where, you just drive them to exhaustion until they pretty much lay down without too much more force, although there's still ropes, and then they're down. And these people say, then they learn to trust. I have a huge problem with that because I feel like they are completely fouling the word trust. To me, that would be like if someone pinned my arm behind my back, twisted me up, and said, lay down on the ground, lay down, get on your knees, lay down on the ground. And I fought it and fought it and fought it until I am so exhausted that I drop to the ground, and they force me to lay on the ground. And then, but see, that whole thing is tricky too, because it all depends on who's doing it to you, right? If a total stranger dressed all scary or whatever and had a very aggressive manner came running up to me and did that to me and made me drop to the ground, I'd fight him with everything that I've got, right? And then if they wore me out and then pin me to the ground, I'd still fight them. And even when I'm down on the ground, even though I may be physically down, mentally I'm still pissed off. And as soon as I can, I'm going to try to figure out some kind of revenge or some way to get back at them or something like that, but that's my personality. But if my best friend in the world, or whatever, the person that I trust the most in the world, grabbed my arm, pinned it behind my back, and then said, get down now. And I said, why? And they're like, I can't explain, just get down now. I get down, and I trust that my friend had a good reason. And, okay, say that they had a great reason, and then but you notice the difference. The trust came first. Pinning someone down to the ground does not magically create trust. I mean, really think about the definition of trust and how it is developed. Trust is you earn respect, right? You can't really take respect. You can take fear. You can't just demand respect. You have to earn it. Same as trust. You have to earn it. Respect and trust and love are all things that are given freely of your own free will. It's not something that can be forced and quick like that. So that's where I have a problem with those methods. And it's not because I'm a snowflake or anything. It's because I know that there are people where you pin them down and, they're over here thinking, okay, fine, you won this round, but the next round I'm going to get you. Okay, fine, you're physically stronger than I am, but I'm going to find a way. Or even if they don't find a way to get you or whatever, I don't think, animals think in terms of revenge or anything like that. But that would be a great explanation of how there are horses that will choose to come to you and choose to follow you no matter what, and horses that don't. Horses that when you come up to the pen, they run to the other side, or they stay away, or you can never get them to come to you. It's really hard to catch them. You can tell how hard it is for me to catch this guy, but there are some horses that you can't catch them. They don't want to be caught. So that's the difference. You gotta really stress and know what trust is. And then here are the things that makes it complicated. Trust is a whole thing, okay? Oh, thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay, so trust is a whole thing. Think about if you're an employee and you're working and your work conditions really suck. They're really, really bad. and you're having a lot of issues with this equipment or that equipment, and you tell your boss, but your boss doesn't care. They just said, suck it up and deal with it. Do you have a lot of respect or trust for your boss if they respond like that? Or if they tell you, you tell them, hey, oh, gross. Don't do that. That is nasty. If you tell them, hey, this is wrong, this hurts me and stuff like that, and they listen to you and then they take steps to correct it for you, you feel differently when they do that, right? That's the same with the horse. Okay, go, 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 go. Shoo, shoo. Go, 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 go away. So it's the same exact thing. If the saddle fit isn't right, if they're having issues with the trailer, I'm telling you all the things that happened with him. When we went to do Gymkhana, and I didn't have a trailer, so luckily I had a friend that said I could tie him to her trailer, and tied him to a trailer all day long, and he was actually really good about the whole thing. But then as we started doing that more, he started telling me that it was pissing him off. He started to paw. That's the first indication. He started to just get a little pissy. And then when I ignored that, because people say, well, they have to learn patience, right? Then I was like, fine, you have to learn patience. Just like all the other horses out here that are tied to the trailer all day long, they can do it, then you can do it. And I told him that. And then finally he exploded. He just, for no reason at all, we're in the pit, we're doing a run, and he's rearing and bucking, and he's just throwing a huge fit. And then I had to stop, and I didn't punish him for that, because that's him telling me something. And then I realized, and I started thinking, and I started looking back and stuff. That also happened to be a day when it was really chilly out. And so what was going on is he really needs to move around. He, back then he still had the sore hock, sore stifle, sore back. It was chilly out. He was tied to the trailer. I'm running him real quick and then tying him to trailer, running him real quick, tying him to the trailer and stuff. Like, he wasn't getting warmed up properly, wasn't getting cooled down properly. And then he's standing tied to the trailer, and just all of this was compounded, together. And he had been gently telling me for a few events now that, hey, I don't like being tied to the trailer all day. And my answer had always been, deal with it. Everyone else is dealing with it, so you deal with it too. That's how horses are. They are tied to trailers, so it's fine. So I wasn't listening to him, and he exploded, and then I went back and thought about it, and I was like, okay, is it really reasonable to expect him to just deal with that? Or was that me being an ass? And I mean, he had a perfectly reasonable request, and I wasn't listening, okay? The other thing was his hooves. For the longest time, he was so horrible around farriers. I mean, we've had farriers that refuse to deal with him because he's dangerous. I mean, he's taken the farrier's cart and smashed it, and he's tried to hurt farriers. He's tried to lay on them and crush them and all sorts of things. One time I was fighting with him about his hooves, and he kicked me really hard right in the chest and sent me flying. This was after years and years of him trying to tell me that his hooves hurt. And I remember asking the farrier, the farrier would do stuff and he'd jerk back, and I'd go, does it hurt? I mean, and turns out, one time, yeah, the farrier did quick him, and actually more than one time, a few times throughout his life. He's 13 years old. Throughout his life, farriers have quicked him, cut to blood, bleeding, right? And then, other things have hurt him. Plus, Now that I know, he was too short and his hoofs were falling apart and stuff like that, and that was affecting his hock and his stifle and all that. So he had been trying to tell me for years, and I wasn't listening. I didn't understand. And then it wasn't until I switched him to barefoot, I can come into this pen and do all of his feet at liberty, just like this. Not tied, not nothing. He now will hold his hoof up for me, and there's no fight whatsoever. It's a total change. And all of that because I finally got the courage to take it upon myself to learn about proper hoof care and provide that to him. I know there's this one horse that the owner said is starting to get really food aggressive. Will chase us out of the pen at dinner time. Will start, acting all agitated at dinner time and da 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 and aggressive, food aggressive at dinner time and feeding times. And I looked at this horse, and this is a very sweet horse, sweetest horse in the world. So it's really surprising that this horse all of a sudden is developing this aggression. Answer was easy. You could go one way and go, okay, start carrying a whip with you at feeding time. When they come around and start getting aggressive, you get aggressive back and you hit that horse and you make sure that that horse knows who's boss. That's one way of dealing with it. Another way is try to give the horse the benefit of the doubt. Try to look at it from the horse's point of view. This horse had been in pasture before coming here. And then coming here, the owners now was feeding the horse twice a day. The horse was hungry. Horses, and then there are people that go, I feed the horse plenty, just twice a day, but that's plenty enough food. I know because they say that a horse's weight, they should get this much hay. Oh, gross! They should get this much hay and this much grain. I have all the calculations down, and I am feeding them that. No, that's not how it works. Look up the gallbladder in horses. They don't have one. They need to eat constantly. It's this whole thing. I mean, just look into it. So my answer was, give her the hay that she wants to eat. Let her eat all day long. Doesn't, okay, I won't go into all the details because I'm running up a lot of time, but you see what I'm saying. The horse is telling me that the saddle fits, or he doesn't like the saddle. I have to look into saddle fit. Horse is telling me that the hooves are hurting. I have to look into that, and I have to do something about that. Horse is saying he doesn't want to be tied up to the trailer all day long. So what did I do? I got my own trailer, and I got him a huge pen. And when he had that pen, everything was fixed. All of these vices or problems or issues with aggressive horses was never solved by making him do it. It was always solved by looking at it from his point of view and trying to figure out what he's trying to say, see if it's reasonable or unreasonable, and then providing it. It's as simple as that. As far as training goes, I do use carrots, and I also have a whip. If he is, now remember, he used to be super aggressive. He would charge at people, he would smash people. I've gotten very seriously injured, me on the ground, because he hurt me. So on one hand, I have a whip to make sure that he can see me too, because he normally when we run around, his head is real high up above me, and he can't see me because I'm right there in his blind spot. So I'll hold my whip up so he can see the whip, and then he can see that's where I am. Or I'll hold it up and say, hey, don't crush me, or something like that. But it's also, okay, this is one end of the spectrum, and the carrots is the other end, and then you choose where you want to fall in that. But the whip can never be used in an abusive manner. because abuse never teaches and force never teaches them, and you're not going to get a horse that's going to come around to you and choose to be with you if you use those tactics. There's a problem, or there's a vice with horses pawing, right? And so what is one solution? You tie this horseshoe around their leg, and every time they paw, that horseshoe is going to hit their leg and it hurts. And then they teach themselves not to paw. Well, is that really the answer? If you look at how, how I like to think of things, I like to get to the root of the problem. Why is he pawing? He doesn't want to be tied. How long are you tying him? If you're tying him for 10 minutes, absolutely, he needs to suck it up and learn some patience. But if you're tying him for 10 hours and he has no food or water, that is unreasonable. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to side with the horse on that one, So there's that. I guess with everything, I am not forcing him to do anything. I teach him, whether it be how to move, how to carry himself and stuff. It's all to teach him. And I was kind of introduced to this method with the whole bitless thing, with a bit in their mouth. And he was the one that told me he didn't like the bit. Okay, so how this whole bitless thing came about is I rode him with a bit for the first, 10 years or something. Wait, no, 7 years. How long? Okay, wait, he's 13 years old. So I've had him for almost 11 years. And go. And so he was always in a bit, and he liked it fine. He'd always lower his head for me, open his mouth, and just take the bit in his mouth. Then a few times it happened where he'd lift his head and clamp his jaw shut. And I look at him and I go, come on, you know what this is. Open your mouth and take the bit. And he'd go, yeah, I do know what it is. I'm not stupid, and I'm trying to tell you something. So finally, so finally I said, all right, fine, what are you telling me? And he goes, come here. Okay, wait, hold on. Come. So finally he goes, I'm trying to tell you that I don't want a bit in my mouth. And, of course, I'm like, well, you're crazy. So there's no way that I can ride you without a bit. But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, maybe I'll try it. We tried it, and for the first few rides, I was pretty sure he was going to kill me. But then I noticed something. He started to come around, and before, the bit made him do it, right? It was totally different when I switched to bitless, and there was nothing making him do it. Then it became his choice, and he had to take on the responsibility to want to do what I asked. And it also forced it so that I was asking. There was, I don't know, if you saw a naked baby running through here, ignore it. There's horse trainers that look at my bridle setup and ask me, how does that work? And what they're asking me is, there is nothing in this bridle setup that is making that horse do anything. You have no control at all. And I say, you are absolutely right. There is nothing making this horse do what I say. And they're like, how does that work? They can't even understand it. And my thing is trust. Trust is not a one-way street. I need to trust him and he needs to trust me. Obviously, I'm not going to slap a bitless bridle on a horse I'd never met that used to be a bucking bronco horse or something like that and hates people, and ride out into, you know, 6th Street, into city streets, and expect everything to be fine. Trust doesn't work like that. Trust, something that accumulates after years of being together, spending time, and establishing a relationship, and, you know, some training as well. It all comes together. But yeah, my bridle doesn't make him do anything. But even at his worst, which is right now our race mornings, right now he is perfect through everything. I used to not be able to ride him in groups. Now I can. You know, I used to not be able to do so many things, and now I can. And not because I had any kind of special training technique at all. It was all solved by trust. The trailer, trust. Him not wanting to be tied, trust. I'm riding him with the Arctic skirt now, where before I couldn't even get a horse blanket on him. Trust. Trust fixed everything. And how do you develop trust? Time, consistency, training, I mean, you know, all that usual stuff. Listening to the horse, and all that. So anyways, it's so simple, and I'm sorry if at this point you're still thinking, well, that doesn't help me any. You're not giving me any magic formula. And I gotta say, I don't have a magic formula. I will say this though, it was very interesting because several people have asked me now to come out and do an evaluation with them and their horse, because they're having problems and they don't know why. And I come right in and I go, that horse is hungry. Feed her more. Feed her all the time. Let her have hay 24/7. Bam, that fixed it. Someone else had a problem with their horse, and used to be a loving horse with a beautiful gait and smooth and loving. Now this horse is getting aggressive and nasty and throwing out random bucks here and there, and it's also random, and it's just not the same horse anymore. And I come in and look, and you know, she's having body issues, she's having soreness, saddle's not fitting right, you know, and some other stuff. We fixed that. The horse is back to being loving again. Animals are simple. They don't have a lot of wants and needs, you know, and their wants and needs are very valid, very basic, very valid. Right now, all he wants is some carrots. Go away. And oh, the other thing to be careful about is there are things out there that are human inventions, human concepts and inventions that interfere with what is right and should be, okay? Things like competition. Before it used to be, if you wanted to be, you know, before what I thought is, if you wanted to be accomplished, you know, equestrian, then, you know, I do dressage and show jumping, and that's actually my background. But if you said, like, you know, people say, oh, you know, what discipline do you ride? What sport do you ride? You know, what do you do with your horse? And if I just said, oh, I just ride on the trail, then they go, she's not a serious rider. You know, she's not doing a serious sport. She has no ribbons and awards and all that behind her name and stuff. And I go, okay, fine, I'm not a serious rider. Those ribbons and winning and a lot of these sports, these are human concepts. They're not based out of anything real and universal to what is important in life. But we take these human concepts like winning and awards and ribbons and stuff, and we put that above what is best for the horse. And that's not right. The concept of feeding a horse twice a day, that's a human concept. The only reason why we feed horses twice a day, because it's more convenient for us. that's not what's right for the horse. That's not what is proper. That's not, there are so many, tying the horse to the trailer for an all-day show. That's a human concept, and it's unreasonable to expect of a horse. There are horses that adapt to that fine, and these are the easy horses. The horse is easy to train, easy going and stuff. You know, the horse that we all love and want, and it's fine until you meet a horse like him that says no and puts his hoof down, says, I will not tolerate that. And then these are the horses that trainers don't know what to do with, because these horses would rather kill themselves than to be submit to that kind of stuff. And that is where that is the difference. So you see, he really wants carrots. He could just tear this bag and run off with it, right? But he's not. He's telling me, and yes, he's telling me more and more insistently that he wants carrots, but I mean, is that really so unreasonable to ask? Go away. So that's why I'm just like, you know, stop it. He knows not to, and then he'll try to ask nicer with like licking my face and stuff like that, and look, this is a horse that gets beat all the time. You see the fear in his eyes? Okay, so yeah, so be careful about human constructs that interfere with what's best. A lot of times we do things because it's convenient for us, and the horse suffers. And that's a huge problem. We can't do that. A lot of the stuff that I've had to change, it was not convenient for me, but I had to change it to fit him. So the other thing that I see a lot is when a person allows their own fears to dictate how they treat their horse. If they're more of a beginner rider and their horse acts in a way that's scary to them, that fear can do bad things, you know. The fear may drive them to look for a bigger bit or a tie down or equipment that will make the horse instead of teaching the horse, because they you know, didn't think of a different way. So you have to really work to make yourself better. That's probably the biggest key to how I was able to deal with him. I had to change myself. Like I said, I used to follow traditional methods of training that worked for other horses, just didn't work for him. And he was the one that drove me to look for a different way, a way that could not include force. If I hit him, he will get angry back at me, and then we'll lose our trust. He'll lose respect for me, and then everything comes crashing down. So we have a funny relationship, you know. I think you'll see, like, this whole video, you know, I've been smacking him, he's been smacking me around and stuff, but we're honest with each other. We do have a lot of trust, and that shows up in all sorts of different manners that other people pick up on, that by now I don't even think that it's weird. I just think that it's us. But let's see, I can do stuff like this with him, like this. I used to only go through his front legs because that was kind of safer for me. But now I can even go through his hind legs, because everything is safe with him now. I can ask him, let's see, drop, drop his head, lift this leg, lift. Good job. Lift. Good boy. Lift. Good. Drop. I used to not be able to play with his ears at all. Now I can be all rough with him and he doesn't even care. And that's how I want it with him. I want to be able to hit him and for him to be okay with it, you know. I want to be able to hold a whip and him know that I'm not going to beat the crap out of him. And it's important when we're out too, because there are horses that are scared to death of whips. And if they're like that, all a person has to do is come up and shake a whip at your horse and your horse freaks out and dumps you, you know. I mean, I want him to be completely fear-free sort of thing, you know. And let's see. Oh, can you do this? Can you paw? When we develop a relationship and trust, I've also noticed that he watches me. A lot of these tricks and stuff, I was able to teach him just by walk. Come on, no. Go over there. Walk. And that's why I would have my whip to show him, don't step on me. Walk. Good. Oh, don't hit the camera. Come here. Good, come on. Come on. Good boy. Oh. Okay. Walk. Look at my leg. Walk. Good boy. Come here. Back. Good boy. So now just right there, how much of that will people watch and they freaked out? Oh my gosh, you're standing behind his butt. He's backing up towards you. That's an aggressive move. His ears look like they might be a little pinned, or, you know, all this stuff. And that is people's fear talking. Is he about to eat my head and bite me or something like that? You know, that's all fear. Fear is going to be a problem. Your own ability and skill is going to be a problem if it's too low. But none of that is the horse's fault. That is something that we need to fix in ourselves. We need to trust ourselves. We need to raise our own knowledge level, our own skill sets and stuff. And we need to learn to trust them before they can learn to trust us, right? So there's just a ton that goes into it. So anyways, I hope that helps in any way. If there's, sorry, naked baby's about to step into the picture. If there's any questions, let me know. I will try to narrow it down better. It might be better if you give me scenarios and then I can tell you what I would do or what my thoughts are. Maybe I can think of something that you guys haven't thought of yet or something like that, which is all that it is. It's just, you know, trying to find another way or trying to think how they think and stuff. So anyways, thank you for watching and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.